You are listening to the Beltway Wars Invitational Podcast, hosted by Adam Jackson and Patrick Wilton. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the Beltway Wars Invitational Fantasy Football Podcast, Week 6 Recap. 6 weeks in. Adam, here we are. Good evening. How are you doing? How is your week? You got a win this week. You're 3-3. Going on?
Yeah, I mean, it went well. Hit over the projections a little bit. And, running backs carried the day for me. A lot of higher scores. I mean, we had a 136. We had a person in the 140 or 166 rather. So it seems like a lot of high scores and kind of a lot of low scores. So it's kind of really up and down this week for week 6. So interesting. A lot to talk about for week 6. This will be a little bit different of a show because we can actually see what the waiver wire looked like between yesterday and today, so maybe we can go over that a little bit. But yeah, it's a good week. 3-3, can't complain.
Yeah, it's also going to be a different week because I was at a conference in New Orleans for the better part of the last week and watched zero football. So everything I say tonight will be based on what I'm reading or seeing. I haven't listened to very much. I haven't watched very much. I am pretty out of the loop, so I will be relying on you to fill in some of the finer details of some of the Week 6 action this week. So with that, I won't waste a lot of time. Let's get into – I'm also very tired, so I'm going to try to get through this show pretty quickly and get some sleep. New Orleans is a – have you been – let's see here I say let's get into the matchups. You've been in New Orleans. Have you been to New Orleans?
Never been. Would want to go, but never been.
Yeah, wild place. I mean, it's my second time, but lots of late nights. One night on Bourbon Street, some other things going on, lots of drinking. Professional conference, but definitely once the conference ends for the day, it's
Party time.
Yeah, it's New Orleans. So anyway, speaking of partying, Dustin is partying this week after yet another victory. We're going to start with his team, the highest scoring team of the week, and I'm already looking at week 7 matchups. I need to slide back a week, but it is Dustin getting the victory over the Penn Prairie Wolves for the second week in a row, maybe the third week in a row. Jake gets the loss against the highest scoring team. Just his luck. We'll talk about that later. But the Banshees get the victory to advance to 5-1, maintaining the number 1 spot in the standings. 166.16 over 122.7. So a 40-point victory for Dustin's Banshees. Gets big performances from his Falcons. Those are two guys that we're going to talk a lot about in the big question at the end of the segment. But spoiler alert, Bijan Robinson, 32 points. Drake London, 26 points, coming off of a bye week last week. It was also Drake May putting up a really nice 3-touchdown game, 27 points there. It was Kyron Williams going 13 for 50 and a touchdown, 15 fantasy points from his side of things. Jalen Waddle, Tyler Warren, both wide receiver for the Dolphins and the rookie tight end for the Colts, each scoring 12 or more fantasy points this week. Warren did get into the end zone. He is now tight end number 2 on the season as a rookie. So here we go again with Dustin and those rookie tight ends. And then we have to mention the Broncos' 13-11 victory over the Jets. This was, I believe, the overseas game.
Yep.
Maybe was it? Yeah. Okay. Ugly game.
9
I
sacks.
guess 13-11. Yeah. Wow. I guess Fields just couldn't get rid of the ball, is what I heard. He was holding on to the ball. He was just got absolutely destroyed. So 13-11, kind of an ugly score there. The The only thing on the bench to mention for Dustin, other than the fact that he gets Rashee Rice back this coming week, but Zach Ertz, another nice game here, 6 for 6, 43 yards, and a touchdown. He is the number 12 tight end, and that is after even missing week 5. So his stats are actually a little bit better than that. In his 5 healthy games, he's now scored 10 or more in 3 of them. He was 6 for 6. It's his 3rd touchdown of the year, so a nice day there. So, Adam, some options to choose from for your
Yeah.
beast in week number 5.
I mean, the beast has to be Bijan Robinson. I mean, this is what, when he came out of college in 2023, his rookie season, this is what you were kind of expecting is like the full time usage. I mean, 19 carries, 170, also 6 receptions for 68 yards. So goes over 200 yards total offense. Also has a touchdown on 74% snaps. So when he is on the field, he is being used. And, it's kind of a little deceiving just because he did have his bye week very early. He's now the running back number 3. But I think early on, and I mean, probably for the rest of the season, he's the number 1 overall running back. And I think that he, for next year, is the number 1 overall pick. So that just shows you how good he has been. Hasn't been under 12 points this season, so his floor is around 13. And he is a central point of this offense. I expect this to continue. The entire Falcons offense runs through Bijan Robinson. And just what a game on still just 74% snap count.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the sweet spot for him. He's able to be effective, but he's able to maybe not get abused like some of the other bell cow running backs in the league. Tyler Algier is a very competent running back too for the Falcons and is able to get around 30% of the snaps in most weeks. There are some plays that they run where both of those guys are on the field. So really nice day for Bijan Robinson. How about a bust this week for Dustin despite 166 points? Maybe there's somebody on here that you'd like to feature there.
Yeah, Devontae Adams. Just kind of a weird game because Puka did leave this game for a little bit, and he still only was able to score 5.9 points. There's talk about Puka missing this week as well. Obviously, you're going to try to get Devontae Adams in the lineup if that is the case for sure. But you're suspecting a little bit more out of him, and it seems like when Puka goes out, it's not just like Devontae Adams steps into that role. It's kind of like it gets spread out a little more between some of the other pass catchers as well. So you might need to temper your expectations if Puka does miss this one. Tutu Atwell being there, Jordan Whittington also there as well, getting some work. Tyler Higbee also scored a touchdown in this game as well. So maybe temper the expectations a little bit. Maybe he's not a top 10 wide receiver if Puka is out, but just his lowest point total of the season. Didn't really need to do anything against Baltimore. They pretty much, the score was kind of deceiving. They really had control of that game the entire game. So just a little down week, but obviously he should be in your starting lineup going forward.
Absolutely, as will Drake London and Jalen Waddle and Rashee Rice, probably. Shakir likely going to be out of service here next week for Dustin with better options there at the wide receiver position. I should say also, I just wanted to check on his snap count, Devontae Adams, since you bring him up. He did play 79% of the snaps. It is a season low. He's usually in the mid to high 80s, so not exactly sure what that means, but for sure, if they do hold Puka out for this next week with the bye the week after that, Devontae Adams sure will see an uptick in targets. So I think could be a bounce back for Devontae Adams next week. All right, the Falcons, Adam, returned from their Week 5 bye, and they absolutely dominated the Bills on Monday Night Football. Dustin's pair of Falcons, his Falcons stack here of Bijan Robinson, his first-round pick, Drake London, his second-round pick, has been a huge reason for Dustin's success. For some reason, for some people, devoting your top 2 picks to 2 players on the same team may seem a little risky, but can you think right now of any team in the NFL that has a better running back wide receiver stack than the Atlanta Falcons right now?
I mean, I can't think of one off the top of my head. So I'm going to say yes. And you got to be careful about the stacks. I get your concerns about you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, but when you have these talented type of players, it's kind of like you got to pick the value where it's at, no matter what team they're on. Bijan obviously might be setting the record for total yards in a season, and Drake London being that X1 factor, pass catcher A on the Falcons team. With Michael Penix, as he was doing well last year with them at the end of the season. There's no better stack in the Beltway Wars Invitational, and that's the main reason why Dustin is now 5-1.
All right, Bijan and London, or Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs?
That's pretty close. I'm going to go Bijan just because Jahmyr Gibbs still is, sharing more of a snap count with Dave Montgomery than Tyler Algier.
CeeDee Lamb and Javonte Williams, or the Falcons?
It's close, but I'm still going to go with the Falcons. Bijan is just generational. I mean, it's
yeah.
Falcons.
All right. I think last one here, Kyren Williams and Puka Nacua, or the Falcons?
That's pretty close as well. Puka, setting, could set the catch record this year. That's a really hard one. Half point PPR, probably go Puka and Kyren Williams.
Yeah.
Just because of the amount of receptions he gets per week, and I'm in love with Puka Nacua.
Yep, for sure. Okay, well, let's move on to the losing side here. The Penn Prairie Wolves, Jake Krieger's team, falls to 1-5 on the season. Now number 11 down there with Tom at 1-5. He does get, Jackson Dart, 23 fantasy points. He's now 15 or more in his 3 starts this year, so maybe the Giants have something there in Jackson Dart. Christian McCaffrey, I feel like I say the same thing about him every week. 20 fantasy points there, gets into the end zone, catches 7 passes. He's just incredible. Speaking of incredible, Jackson Smith-Njigba in Seattle continues his dominant sophomore campaign with 26 fantasy points on 162 yards and a touchdown. One of the best receivers, if not the best. Let's see, wide receiver 3 for the second straight week for Jackson Smith-Njigba. So a dominant stretch of games here, really for the entire season for the sophomore there for Seattle. Sam Laporta with 14. Bam Knight gets the start, a waiver pickup for Jake. 11 carries, 34 yards, and a touchdown there in Arizona. Essentially splitting work with Michael Carter. Much to my dismay, but we'll get to that later. But some of the reasons why Jake struggled here, of course, he does have all the injuries we've talked about to guys like Trey Benson. Obviously had the injury to Joe Burrow earlier in the season. Aaron Jones continues to miss games with injury here. But on the bench, a bright spot. Wish he probably gave him the start, but Kendrick Bourne had his second straight week there with the 49ers. Of course, the 2 leading pass catchers, really the 3 leading pass catchers there for the 49ers, including George Kittle, are continue to be on the shelf. So Kendrick Bourne taking full advantage of that, unfortunately, on Jake's bench this week. So losing this one with 122 points, still a nice point total, and still a few players here to select a beast from.
So my beast is going to be Jackson Dart. Again, we kind of talk about like the young quarterback, running quarterback kind of scenario here, where 10 carries, 7 carries, 13 carries in this one, has 2 rushing touchdowns in his first 3 games. It's just one of those things where you can always kind of expect, around the 50-yard rushing mark. He's hit that in all 3 of his games. That's 5 points right there. So we always talk about that 20-point range that you really want your starting quarterback to be in. That's 5 points right there. So that's 25% of it. So, you really like to see that. He'll get better as a passer itself, but they really seem to believe in him, and he's doing really well. He actually, had that offset against the Eagles in Week 6, so does kind of have some little challenging matchups here. He goes to Denver, goes to Philadelphia, and San Francisco, so it would be interesting to see. But his floor is high because of that rushing ability, so he is my beast for Jake's team in Week 6.
Yeah, tough matchup at Denver in Week 7. That'll be a little bit of a tough one. We saw what they just did with the 9 sacks against Fields that we talked about. So that will be an interesting test for the rookie quarterback there for the Giants. Okay, how about a bust for Jake's team in Week 6?
So my bust is going to be Stephon Diggs. Kind of got overshadowed by a couple of other pass catchers on the Patriots this week. Had a really good week in Week 5, his best week of the season. Now back to, that 4-point range where it kind of looked like Week 1 through Week 3. So are we seeing this as more inconsistency from him? He doesn't really have a stranglehold on that passing attack in New England. With the rookie quarterback, they're going to run the ball. Drake May's also going to run the ball as well. Does that hamper his touchdown ability? He does not have a touchdown on the season as well. Also, 59% snap count is kind of odd, and it's kind of a trend now. I mean, 41, 52, 53, 63, 50, 59. So he's not on the field the entire time either. And if you're not on the field, you can't score fantasy points. So, kind of concerning there with some of the younger wide receivers they have there in New England. I'm forgetting the guy's name, but
Keyshawn Boutte.
Yep. Matt Collins also there. Hunter Henry's going to get his looks as well. So kind of concerning there. Run first team. He is my bust for Week 6.
All right, Adam. Well, we've spent a lot of time in previous week talking about those injuries being the reason why Jake's team has been in complete free fall, but there's no doubt that he's had horrible luck in that injury department. But Jake pointed out to me yesterday that he has had more points scored against him than anyone else in the league with 876 points. The next highest, by the way, is Dustin, first place, with 715. That's a 161-point difference. To put that a little bit into perspective here, the 11 other teams in the league are all within 94 points of each other in that category. So I'm not sure there's really a question here, but I am wondering if maybe we should be giving Jake a little more credit, given the unbelievably bad luck that Jake has had so far this year. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's had bad luck, but there's also some, players that were underperforming based on where they were drafted. A.J. Brown is the prime example. Hasn't really been worth that second-round pick that he is. Also, Sam Laporta, I know he's been coming on a bit now, tight end 16, but he had Week 2 through Week 4 where it was kind of looking like last year a little bit. It was, kind of like lost in the sauce there in Detroit. Also, the injuries don't help as well. But Aaron Jones was also starting to cede some work to Jordan Mason as well. So I think it's a combination of both. Obviously, if you have the most points scored against you, it's going to be a uphill battle, also with injuries. But there's also some underperformers here that, haven't really helped Jake out either.
Agreed there. I do like Lost in the Sauce. I think I'm going to try to use that more for sure. Okay, let's move on to our next matchup here. It's going to be Sarah getting another victory, 4 in a row for both her and Josh. We'll get to Josh later, but both of them have won 4 straight games after dropping the first 2. They have the same win or loss in each week. So kind of interesting fact there. 136.88 over Alex's Owings Mills Ozempics, who scored 107.8 this week. Sarah's team, the Pulverizers, advanced to 4-2 and is the number 2 team in the standings. So the continuing to climb up the leaderboard for Sarah, and that is despite having some key players on the bench. It's CeeDee Lamb, who has missed several games now at this point. With an injury, he's probably going to return here in the next week or 2. And Marion Hampton, this was his first full game out after getting injured last week. So a nice point total for Sarah, 136 points with those guys on the shelf. Patrick Mahomes, man, totally gone are the days of the 20-point ceiling. Yeah. Now he's hitting 30 points, his first game of 30 points or more against the Lions in this week. Just despite 30 passing attempts, he's very efficient on the day with 3 touchdowns. Got another touchdown on the ground. So a very nice day for Patrick Mahomes. Also a very nice day for the running backs, Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor doing Jonathan Taylor things. 21 carries, 123 yards, and a touchdown, catches 4 passes. Rachaad White, a guy that you draft not knowing what his role is going to be, but this lingering injury for Bucky Irving is keeping Rachaad White in the spotlight. 17 carries is his highest on the season. He comes out of this one with 16 fantasy points. George Pickens, we've talked about it before, continues to be an incredible wide receiver 1 with CeeDee Lamb on the shelf. 27 fantasy points, the wide receiver 1 this week. Little bit of struggles elsewhere, like Keenan Allen kind of trending a little bit down as Ladd McConkey sort of trends a little bit up in that Chargers offense. He scores just 4 fantasy points. Hunter Henry, not a great day, 4 fantasy points for him. Ramondre Stevenson, 13 carries, 18 yards. Yikes. Not very good sledding there.
I would not say
in New
that's
England
efficient use of those 13 carries.
Not so much by any stretch. So not too much on the bench to mention. Again, several players on bye, several players hurt for Sarah, but a really nice day, 136 fantasy points. So pick a beast for the pulverizers in week number 6.
So the beast has to be George Pickens. I mean, I watched this game. He was unbelievable. He took a pass that went about 15 yards and took it for like 50. So, the talent is there. Imagine how scary the Steelers would be if they had George Pickens and DK Metcalf with Aaron Rodgers. That would be a scary little duo. He has now scored a touchdown in each game since week 2. So he's the number 3 wide receiver. Just an all-around great game. And, Dak really seems to be building trust with him. His, points seem to be trending upwards. Now, that might change with the impending return of CeeDee Lamb, but as of week 6, and in this one, he is my beast for Sarah.
Okay, how about a bust?
So the bust that we mentioned him, Ramondre Stevenson, it's like, how long does he have? And the Travion Henderson, it has to be coming soon. Looking at his last 3 weeks, 9 for 36, 7 for 14, 13 carries for 18 yards. The efficiency is just brutal right now. Even with the Patriots winning, I don't know how long they can keep that genie in the bottle, if you want another catchphrase for Travion Henderson. I think his days are numbered now. And you used to kind of get bailed out by the passing, receiving from Ramondre Stevenson. No catches in this one either. That's a little bit of a Drake May kind of, I'm not going to throw it to the running back, I'm just going to run the ball, as we see with running quarterbacks. So he is my buzz for this week, and I am concerned about his fantasy value going forward.
Yeah, interestingly enough, though, you kind of mentioned that this impending takeover, but the interesting thing with the Patriots is the snap share differential between Stevenson and Henderson has not been more great this season than it was in week 6. 72% is Stevenson's high on the year, and 30% is Henderson's low on the year. So I hope you're right as a Travion Henderson truther and a person with that's been kind of trying to get him out of my flex spot. I really hope that I am able to be happy about inserting him into my lineup, Henderson, that is, in future weeks. But the dynamics there, you hope that the coaching staff just gives Henderson a little bit more work. He certainly seems to be a more, have a little bit more explosiveness and energy than the plodding Ramondre Stevenson.
Plodding is the correct word.
Absolutely. Okay, well, last week we did talk about Sarah's running back situation with the injury to Amarian Hampton and her options, including Stevenson, that were kind of filling in the running back room behind him. This week, though, I do want to talk about Sarah's wide receiver situation with the expected return of CeeDee Lamb, potentially as soon as this week in Dallas against division rival the Washington Commanders. George Pickens has been unbelievable, as you mentioned, as well as both for the Cowboys and for Sarah. I mean, a huge reason why she is where she is in the standings is because of Pickens' play. Um, I think it's obvious at this point that Sarah's going to need to start both Lamb and Pickens moving forward. But what are you expecting when both of these guys are on the field together?
I mean, it's kind of like we were expecting, what we saw earlier in the season. It's just going to be a lot more spreading around the ball, and I don't know if that's going to be a positive for Sarah. You're going to have to start both of them. CeeDee Lamb might have a big game, and George Pickens might not have a good game. George Pickens might have a big game, and CeeDee Lamb might not. This is kind of also talking about that stat conversation that we had. There's only so many balls that can go around for Dallas. Now, I will say Dallas has a tendency to throw the ball a ton because their defense is awful. So maybe it's able to, keep two wide receivers happy enough and producing, but I'm kind of lower on this. I think that it's going to be very hit and miss between each of them, but you have to start both of them. So this might be a little bit more of a concern for Sarah going forward, just because one's going to eat and one's going to starve.
I think that's true. Keep in mind also Ferguson has been very good in Lamb's absence. We've talked about that. So we could see the decrease in targets come both from Pickens and also from a guy like Ferguson in that lineup.
Yeah.
Okay, the losing side is Alex, 107 points this week, 2-4, the record, number 9 in the standings. Nice to see Derrick Henry get on track here, doesn't get into the end zone. Nobody got into the end zone, apparently. 24 carries, 122 yards, so at least he got the work. Could have had a goal line, some goal line work, but, well, he didn't get it. Who did get it, though, is DeAndre Swift. He had his first top 12 performance of the season. I'm sorry, he got into the end zone, but threw in the passing game. He caught 2 of 3 balls, 67 yards, so one of those must have been a long one. 24.5 fantasy points for Swift is his kind of season breakout here, coming after the Bears' Week 5 bye. Some injury concerns that we'll talk about here a little bit more, but Emeka Egbuka and Marvin Harrison Jr. both leave this game, each scoring fewer than 5 fantasy points. Certainly a disappointing day for Alex, with 2 guys leaving with injury. Cameron Dicker, the kicker, 18 fantasy points, this team's second leading scorer this week. We always say if your first or second leading scorer is a kicker, you probably did not win your week. That is certainly the case for Alex. On the bench, continues to be really missing Terry McLaurin, a guy that he really was relying on being a major part of this team. Missed this game as well. I believe it was his 3rd straight game missed. It's looks like it's possible that he'll return next week at Dallas, which is, you would love to see that against the terrible Cowboys defense in what could very well be a shootout. Not much other guys to talk about here. I guess Wan'Dale Robinson had a nice day. He got a touchdown there in a win over against the Eagles, 17 fantasy points and 84 yards. So taking a look at the roster, Adam, who is the beast in Week 6?
So the beast is going to be DeAndre Swift. Just a really great game on a low snap count, his lowest actually of the season, but does everything on the ground, through the air, 7.71 yards per carry, 108 yards, his first 100-yard game of the season. Also involved in the passing game as well. He looked good. I mean, I watched a lot of this game because I had DJ Moore, who got hurt like 17 different times in this one. He looked great. It looked like this offense is finally starting to find its identity a little bit, a little more balanced, not putting too much on Caleb Williams' shoulders. And, I mean, look at his next 3 matchups. You have the Saints, Baltimore, and Cincinnati, all plus matchups. Good things to come, and, he's getting all the work. It seems like they trust him a lot. He's catching the ball. He is my beast for Week 6.
Yeah, interestingly enough, only getting like 50 to 60% of the snaps generally in most weeks this year, 56% of snaps. Kyle Monangai, the rookie, had 34%. So it's interesting. Like, he was ultra efficient, but 56% of the snaps. You'd like that to be maybe a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But certainly, in a matchup here against the Commanders, definitely signs of life from
Well,
a guy
just
that.
yeah, just watching that game, Swift looked like the superior back to Mangandai. Like I don't really think it was close. So I think that they trust him more in pass protection, passing down, stuff like that. So I think he's going to be useful, well, very useful going forward, especially with the matchups that he has coming up.
I think I just wanted to hear you say Monangai. That's
Okay,
that's kind of what I just wanted to do.
that's fine.
Anyway, all right. Well, give me a bust for the week.
So it's kind of hard because you don't really want to
Yeah,
go
don't go the injury
the
route. Don't go the
injuries.
injury
So
route.
we're going with Josh
Okay.
Allen.
Oh yeah,
Josh Allen,
yeah.
15 points here. His second lowest of the season. He actually scored worse against the Jets in week 2.
Yep.
A good matchup against Atlanta. You would think that you'd be able to move the ball. Many teams have. But just, the turnovers are starting to rear its ugly head now. Now this is his third straight game with an interception. He had 2 in this one. Also had 2 fumbles in this one as well, but recovered both of them. So getting a little loosey-goosey with the ball. It's just, a couple years ago, he used to turn the ball over a ton. You hope that's not a trend for him going forward. He is now going to be on bye on week 7. But you're expecting more out of him. You're thinking his floor should be around 20. He scores 15, so he is my bust for week 6.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did want to maybe challenge you a little bit. I don't know that the Falcons' defense is as bad as we thought they were. This was a team that did hold the Vikings to 6 points in week 2. Did
J.J.
lose 30
McCarthy.
to. Sure, but lost 30 to nothing to Carolina in week 3, but a lot of that I think was Carolina defensive scoring. So I kind of think that maybe the Falcons may be just a little bit better. Don't disagree with you at all. It is a little bit concerning for Josh Allen. Um, just based on the level of what we expect from him, it kind of feels almost like Mahomes and Josh Allen have swapped roles a little bit.
Yeah.
This isn't a question that I was going to ask you, but rest of season, if you could pick one to have on your team, who is it, Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes?
Oh, boy. That's a good question. They're 1 and 2, respectively, as of right now. I still think I'm going to go Josh Allen just because I feel like he's safer. Running the ball, he's still running the ball 45, 53, 42. So you still have that floor. And I feel like he has more blow up potential in terms of like scoring a 40-point game than what Patrick Mahomes does have. So I think I'd still go Josh Allen, but just the fact that that's a conversation kind of shows how much Mahomes has been elevated and maybe fading Josh Allen a little bit.
Yeah, the thing that Patrick Mahomes has been doing this season that he has not done as much historically is rushing.
Yeah.
He is actually getting some more rushing yards than he typically does. So it has helped even these two guys out. It is interesting, though. I mean, you look at the two offenses, the fact that the Chiefs still really can't get anything going on the ground with their kind of triple backfield. The fact that Buffalo has James Cook. We'll talk about him later on. Has struggled the last couple weeks, but all the weapons. The fact that you're getting Rashee Rice back for Mahomes, I think it's really close. It's a really close conversation.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, well, the injury reaper showed up at Alex's door in week 6, forcing wide receivers Marvin Harrison Jr. and rookie sensation Emeka Ibuka to depart from their games early. It was a concussion for Harrison Jr. and a hamstring for Ibuka. We know that hamstring injuries can linger for multiple weeks, and we know that concussions are about 50-50 when it comes to players' chances of playing the following week.
Yeah.
I suspect the Cardinals may hold Harrison out, regardless of concussion protocol, through their Week 8 bye. But likewise, it's possible that Ibuka is held out through his team's Week 9 bye. The silver lining, we mentioned it, Terry McLaurin may finally return next week. But, Alex is 2-4. He's got an uphill climb. And could it just simply be too much for his squad to overcome to make a run at the playoffs?
I'm going to be a little contrarian here. I don't think so. Um, with Josh Allen, you can't rule anything out. He can score that 40-point game anytime. So can Derrick Henry, too. I mean, remember, Lamar's going to be coming back. It's a totally different offense when he's on the field. I just started to saying my praises about Swift as well. Marvin Harrison, I don't think he's going to be out this week. Watching that game, he went back onto the field, and I think he played like a snap, but then the independent neurologist said, he needs to come out of the field. So I think that he was kind of frustrated on the sideline. He did not want to come out of the game, so I don't think it's anything too serious. So with Harrison, Dobbs, and Terry McLaurin, I think that's enough firepower to get past this, the injuries here. But, it's kind of make or break time. He does need to start stringing along some wins at 2-4. So he's not dead yet. I don't think there's too much talent on this team. But yeah, at 2-4, you need to start winning some games.
All right. Well, Adam, do you know what time it is?
What time is it?
It's time to talk about your team.
Yeah.
The Union Bridge Badgers with the win over the Westminster Wrecking Crew. One down at that time.
I was ready.
There. Well, I'm just waiting to get to the Rockets.
Yeah.
The Rockets. Okay, 128-44 for the Badgers to 109-06 for the Wrecking Crew. You get the win to move to 3-3, number 6 on in the standings so far. You're on the inside track here, Adam. You're in the picture, which is a nice place to be. Dak Prescott continues to air raid assault in Dallas, 22 fantasy points. Ashton Genty, not a very efficient day on the ground, gets bailed out a little bit with a touchdown, but does get work, 23 carries for 75 yards and the touch, 15 fantasy points. It is Devon Achane, 16 carries, 128, 2 touchdowns there, 29 fantasy points, running back number 5 on the week. It is his third top 10 week of the season, and he has been a top 16 running back every single week, all 6 weeks. So nice consistency there out of your Dolphins playmaker. The wide receivers, not so successful, and we will talk about them quite a lot in a minute. But DJ Moore left early, Ridley left early. Michael Pittman,
DJ Moore could come back.
He did.
He did finish the game, and then he went to the hospital after the game. I was like,
good.
What?
Lovely. Well,
Ridley
regardless
was out of the game. Correct.
I mean, Moore, Ridley, and Pittman combined for, just doing some quick math here, about 10 points.
Yeah.
Maybe. Nothing really for ETN, 12 for 27. Got some catches that helped bail his day out. 7.5 fantasy points for ETN. Did get nice kicker and defense performances, combining for almost 34 points. 16 from Boswell, 17 from the Rams. Just like you said, start your teams and your players against the Ravens. That was a successful strategy for the Rams defense in week number 6. On the bench, Trey Tucker, 5 for 5 for 70 yards. But other than that, George Kittle continues to be on IR. Braylon Allen continues to be on IR. So not much to talk about. So who are you impressed by? Who are you really happy with, Adam, as your beast in week number 6?
So I could go Achane, but I won't. Let's go Dak Prescott. Now quarterback number 3 on the season. So, really has been above my expectations. Drafted in the 9th round, Dak Prescott. I know that is a quarterback that you were eyeing up as well. 34 passing attempts, 25. Has been really efficient. 3 touchdowns as well. Only 3 interceptions on the season. Not running really the ball at all, but it doesn't really seem to matter. He's pretty consistent. I mean, 30, 28, 22 the last 3 weeks. Just had that really bad week in week 1. But, this is kind of what I expected. I hoped that he would reach that mark again. He ended up as quarterback number 3 in 2023. This is what I was kind of hoping, around the top 5. So he looks good. He has Washington next week, which is a plus matchup as well. he is my beast for week 6.
Yeah, if you would have told me before the season that CeeDee Lamb was going to be out for most of the first half of the year and that Dak Prescott was still going to be your number 3 quarterback, I would be a little bit concerned and confused there. So certainly nice work from Prescott. That offense continues to click. If their defense wasn't so bad, if they would have kept Micah Parsons,
Yeah, maybe
they might actually be a really good team.
the Cowboys would be really good. Yes.
Yep, that's for sure. Okay, how about bust then?
So I'm going to go Michael Pittman. His worst game of the season. You know, he was kind of that number 1 wide receiver in that Colts offense on a revamped Colts offense, a revamped Daniel Jones. But only 3 targets in this one, his season low. Also 2 catches, his season low as well. Kind of concerning, I would say, because they're talking about Alex Pierce being like on the field a lot and demanding some looks. He did get a lot of looks in this game, or at least it seemed like it. He only got 4 targets in this one, but he was out the last 2 games. So him being back is going to take away some targets from Michael Pittman. I am concerned because I have no wide receivers, as you can tell. So he is my bust for week 6. Josh Downs also had a good game in this one as well.
Downs did. So Downs
Yes.
was the leading target getter there. Let's check the snap counts here. I'm actually curious to see how that worked out. It does look like Pittman still 85% of the snaps, typical usage for him. Downs 50, about 50%. So not a whole lot of change in terms of the snap share there. But I guess Downs just seemed to find the production while Pittman struggled. Okay. All right. Well, in my view, Adam, this was really a pivotal win for your team to get back to 500. But like Alex, one of your players also left his game early with a hamstring injury. And that player is wide receiver Calvin Ridley. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, last week we both agreed that Calvin Ridley was the player that would be most key to your success moving forward.
Yeah.
And it seems likely that he is going to miss some time. Your wide receiver room was already pretty thin to begin with. And although Ridley wasn't necessarily giving you consistency, he was at least giving you some upside potential. You are currently in the middle of the pack, number 6 in the standings. Given this injury, where do you place your chances of making the playoffs after 6 weeks?
I feel like it's kind of a cop-out, but I'm going to say 50-50. I mean, it's kind of along the lines of I need my running backs. I need Gentry and Achane to be top performers. I need them to be around the top 10 or inside the top 10 every single week. DJ Moore seems to be an afterthought there. In Chicago, Michael Pittman is going to have his ups and downs, and Ridley is now hurt. Now, the interesting little name that I do kind of want to bring up is Trey Tucker. It seems like he's starting to carve out a role for himself in this offense. Young player, explosive player. It seems like they want to get the ball in his hands. So he's an interesting little fill-in for Calvin Ridley. He will be filling in this week because I do assume Ridley will be out. But then I also do have, hopefully, Kittle coming back this week as well. So will I be able to survive? I don't know, but definitely a concern. Losing Tyreek was just really, really hurt. And DJ Moore and Calvin Ridley not living up to expectations is just as bad. Okay,
you do play me next week, so
I do.
Your chances of going to 4-3 are pretty good. By the way, I did mention, I think I maybe mentioned it either to you or on a podcast early in the year, I am trying out the Fantasy Pros Premium thing this year, and one of the interesting things that it does is there's a league analyzer that throughout the season at any time you can check on different teams' expected percentages to make the playoffs, and it's looking at your players, it's looking at kind of trends. And right now, you are the first team out with a 41% chance of making the playoffs. So
there you go.
You're pretty close there.
Give me a job.
50-50. There you go.
I'm not getting paid, so give me a job.
All right. So the loser is Scott. 109.6 on the week. 3-3. He is number 7. You guys are back to back. You're number 6. He's number 7. Little bit of a struggle this week, but it wasn't a struggle at the wide receiver position. This is what Scott has been waiting for out of these receivers. Let's just go down the list. Jamar Chase, 20 fantasy points on 12 targets. Brian Thomas Jr., 19 fantasy points on 10 targets. DK Metcalf, 17.5 points on 9 targets. And Lad McConkey, 19.5 on 9 targets. So 4 receivers in the starting lineup, 4 receivers with 9 or more targets, 4 receivers with 17 or more fantasy points. This is what we've been talking about for Scott. Unfortunately, while those guys showed up, the rest of the team didn't really. Quinshon Judkins had his worst performance of the season by far for the Browns, scoring just 3 fantasy points against the Steelers. David Montgomery only had 4 carries in this game against the Chiefs. I think game script may have been a factor. Kyle Pitts struggled. That's no surprise to anybody. Just when you think he is on the upswing, he gives you one of these Kyle Pitts type games. And the Browns defense and Cam Little, by the way, combined for 0.5 points. So nothing working for Scott except for the wide receiver position. On the bench, really, Tyler Algier is the only guy of note. We mentioned him earlier, still getting some production, 10 for 32 with a touchdown. Can you imagine if Bijan Robinson did get, more like 80% of the carries and the snaps? I mean, he would be perhaps even more incredible than
Or if
he already
Bijan
is.
got hurt, if you want to talk about Scott's team, Tyler Algier becomes a top 12 option at that point.
Absolutely true. And by the way, Kyler Murray was a late inactive scratch here, so did have to give the start to Bryce Young, who did actually have a decent game here. 18 fantasy points through 3 touchdowns.
Start your players against Dallas.
That's absolutely true. Not a bad decision there for Scott. Probably, I'm guessing your beast is going to be one of the wide receivers.
Yeah.
Talk about one of them, 2 of them, whatever you like.
I'm going to go Lad McConkey here. This is his second straight game of double-digit points. His target high of the season, his reception high of the season, his yards high of the season. Also scores a touchdown in this one. It seems like the Johnson injury, the Quentin Johnson injury, really has opened up Lad McConkey's value. Now, will that continue? I don't know. Or does Lad McConkey kind of replace Keenan Allen a little bit, who's also been struggling as well? It seems like they kind of forgot about him, and now they're rediscovering him. So definitely love to see this, especially with the draft capital that you spent on him. 19 points. He has Indianapolis, Minnesota, and Tennessee next 3 weeks. So Lad McConkey scoring 19 points is my beast for Week 6.
Yeah, kind of a weird game here. So we should mention that Quentin Johnston did miss this game. Lad McConkey actually had his season low in snap percentage at 70%. Keenan Allen, of course, getting his usual 50 to 60% here. It was Trey Harris, who had not played more than 37% of the snaps, all of a sudden played 83% of the snaps. So I don't know much about him. He must be the deep threat. He basically played in the Quentin Johnson role, but Lad McConkey did have his lowest percentage of the season. So I think
and
you're
he did get a lot
right,
of his
though.
yards on like the last play of the game.
Very true.
So, yeah.
Very true. Yep. To get upfield to kick, I believe they kicked a field goal and won that game. Okay. All right. Well, aside from the wide receivers, you've got a few options here. It could be Cam Little. We've never picked a kicker for this, but I guess let's focus on maybe one of the running backs.
Yeah. So Quinshon Judkins, 40% snap count, only 12 carries. Rookie quarterback, you're expecting them to be run first. It just seems like nothing could get going. Also, no catches in this one, only targeted once. It's just this Browns offense, It's kind of like, ugh. It's hard to really trust anyone in this offense, including Jared Jeudy, including any of the tight ends, running backs, quarterbacks, all that. It's just their offense is just not very good. Now they do have Miami next week, so Miami's also one of those defenses you can move the ball on, but worst game of the year for Junkins, 40% snap count, only 12 carries. He is my bust for week 6.
Yeah, for the first time in a long time, actually, Quinshon Judkins and Jerome Ford had the exact same number of snaps, 33 snaps apiece, 40% each. That's compared to the last 3 weeks where Judkins was out snapping Ford by 20 to 30%. So definitely, for some reason, they got Ford more involved here. I don't know.
Game
I
script
think they were
probably.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, down in this game, for sure.
But that's the thing. I mean, the Browns are going to be in negative game scripts the entire time, so that's not a great
Yep,
sign if they don't trust him on passing downs.
that is very true. All right, well, it was obviously a fantastic week for Scott's receivers, most of whom have struggled really quite a bit to begin the year, but a surprise inactive for quarterback Kyler Murray. Disappointing performances from the other positions combined to make this a really tough loss, I think, for Scott. It was a really pivotal win for you, Adam. Really tough loss for Scott. You both have the same record now at 3-3. But I think this week kind of proves that even if all of these wide receivers have suddenly figured it out, and that's assuming, again, all of them have figured it out,
Yeah.
and if they all begin to return closer to their draft value, are there enough other questions on this roster to keep Scott's wrecking crew on the bubble for the rest of the season?
I think the big question that we haven't really talked about here is Chua Hubbard. What does his role look like when he comes back? Because Rico Dowdle looks amazing. I mean, he's getting 30 rushes a game, which is unheard of in this NFL. Now, back when we were kids, 30, you used to see a couple of people get 30 rushing attempts a game. That does not happen. It happens for Rico Dowdle, though. So you just lost a lot of value, I feel like, with Chua Hubbard there. So you're starting Junkins. You probably have to start Montgomery. I mean, and then you have Ladd McConkey. You have to keep him out there as long as Johnson is out as well. So he's going to be on the bubble the entire year, I feel like. And, you're going to have some of these weeks where Brian Thomas kind of goes down again just because of how inconsistent Jacksonville's offense is. You also have to believe that Jamar Chase is going to have these games with Joe Flacco. Maybe he will, but Joe Flacco not really known to push the ball down the field. So I'm concerned, but enough talent on here that he will probably be on the bubble for the entire season.
Yeah, for what it's worth, Fantasy Pros puts the odds of making the playoffs for Scott at 49%, so squarely on the bubble for Scott's team. All right, let's move on to the next matchup. Unfortunately, it is the Timonium Neon Trees, Brian's team.
Neon Trees, he corrected me. He texted me, he said, I am not the Neon Trees, and then I gave him a Neon Trees lyric. It is the Neon Tubes. The neon
Did I say trees again?
You said trees.
Oh, Jesus
the tubes.
Christ. I think if I do this enough, everyone should just be nice to me and just change their name so I don't have to screw it up anymore. I do like the Neon Trees. I really do. I
got
like
Neon Trees on the brain.
That's right. Neon Tubes. I'm actually checking out the logo here. Like, is there some neon there?
I don't know what's going on with that.
Not really tubular. Well, I guess tubes of neon. Okay, anyway. Brian does get the win. 116.06 over my Pratt Street Po Boys 86.98. 4-2 on the year for Brian, number 4 in the standings. He does it with a goose egg from Tyquan Thornton. He does it with guys getting banged up in this one, including Josh Downs and Darren Waller, who are questionable for week 7. He does it with 2 guys that are no longer on his roster in Thornton and Tyler Loop. He does it with Rico Dowdle and Kimani Vidal. God damn it. 31 points for Rico Dowdle and 21 points for Kimani Vidal. Those guys, 30 carries for Rico Dowdle. We'll talk about him a little bit. Kimani Vidal, 18 carries, 124 yards. It was 183 for Dowdle, just insane for the second week in a row. And those guys did it. 116 points isn't a ton of points for me right now, but it's kind of, I would say, league average, maybe a little bit better than average. But Roma Dunze struggled in this one, 2 for 5 for 32 yards. It was easily his worst game of the season. Trey McBride, a nice bright spot here, 8 for 11, 72 yards and a touchdown. It was a tight end 2 performance for him. It was his third top 6 performance on the year. So certainly returning some good draft value with performances like this. Not a lot on the bench. Bucky Irving was out. Quentin Johnston was out. Mike Evans was out. Justin Jefferson was on bye. So all of those factors to be able to get a win for Brian this week, quite a nice victory there to advance to 4-2. So let's talk about somebody. I'm guessing you're going running back, but we'll see, Adam, for your beast in week number 6.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be Rico Dowdle. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, I don't know how they didn't see this during training camp or whatever, but his first 2 weeks of starting, 30 points each. I mean, it's absolutely insane. 206 yards in week 5, 183 in week 6. Also involved in the passing game as well. And this one, 4 for 56 and a touchdown. Looking at it, he's only started 2 weeks. He's now running back number 12. Now I'm seeing notes here. Panthers won't commit to Rico Dowdle as starter. I don't know how you don't start him, but Panthers are going to do Panther things. But just an amazing pull from free agency. We'll talk about that in the overview of Brian's team. But just wow, how free agency can change a team's prospects. And Rico Dowdle is the leading front man for that. He is my beast for week 6.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's kind of doing what Chuba Hubbard has done, a year or two ago, kind of coming out of obscurity, a guy that, is kind of a career backup and all of a sudden establishing himself, making a name for himself. Quite a performance, quite a 2-week stretch. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how easily to find the information, but like the last time that a running back had back-to-back 30-point weeks, probably been a while. I don't know. But certainly incredible day for Dowdle. Okay, how about a bust for Brian this week? I mean, he had a goose egg on this team.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be Thornton. Just with the amount of points scored, you would hope that he'd get a couple of looks. He's the downfield threat for Patrick Mahomes. Now with Rashid Rice coming back, he's going to be unusable, you would think. It's just so many pass catchers on this offense that seems to get looks each and every week. You have Juju, you have Xavier Worthy, you also have Hollywood Brown there, Travis Kelce. So 27% snap count. With Rashid Rice coming back, he's probably droppable at this point, just looking at Brian's roster construction. So goose egg here. Worst performance of the season by far. He is my bust for week 6.
All right, I've mentioned a lot of this already, but Brian did win this game despite the goose egg that we talked about for Thornton, Robin Dunze, the underwhelming performance. But did it with the 21 from $6 waiver ad Kamani Vidal and the second straight 30-point day from $3 waiver ad Rico Dowdle against his former team, the Cowboys. Something that I think we foreshadowed a little bit, that the potential for him to have this type of a game against his former team. He was clearly very motivated coming into this one. It wasn't really a pretty win for Brian, but he got the job done. With Justin Jefferson on bye, the injuries that we mentioned to the 2 Buccaneers, Irving and Evans, and to Quentin Johnson sidelined as well. So buy or sell, Adam, given the fact that these waiver wire running backs seem like they're going to have some sticking power, does Brian have the scariest team in the league right now? Buy or sell?
I'm going to sell that. I think Dustin's team is the scariest. But I would say right now, let's say Dowdle does take over the role, and let's say Hampton is out for a little longer than what's to be expected. Looking at this bench, Justin Jefferson, Evans, and then you have, you started Dunze there. Then you have Quentin Johnson as well, who's been, really, really good this season. Brian's my dark horse team to win this whole thing. The main sticking point with Brian's team is the quarterback position. It's like, Bo Nix, get it together, man. It's just like now quarterback number 13. That is not what you expected where you drafted him in the 6th round. You're expecting more of him out of that. Still rushing the ball a little bit, so you do kind of like that. You want to see a little bit more of that. But just has been, as a Bo Nix owner in another league, he's been very disappointing this season, and it might be enough to hold Brian back from a Beltway Wars Invitational Championship.
All right, well, talk about holding someone back from a Beltway Wars Invitational Championship. I am not going to be in that conversation at all after losing this one with just 86 points scored, the second fewest on the week. My team advances to 2-4. Not really advances, digresses to 2-4, regresses to 2-4. Now the number 10 team in the standings. I did, Adam, however, manage to select the correct quarterback this week. Caleb Williams getting the start with 19 fantasy points, over 4 from Fields on the bench. We talked about Fields earlier. But the running backs are a big issue. All 3 starting running backs on this team are all in basically 50-50 timeshares at this point. Jaylen Warren, 7 fantasy points. Michael Carter, 7 fantasy points. Tony Pollard, 5 fantasy points with the return of Tajay Spears. The wide receivers, not much better. Amon-Ra St. Brown has his second worst effort on the season. T. Higgins continues to be just very mediocre here. He's kind of now 2 straight weeks. He's around that 8 to 9 fantasy point range.
Yeah.
In 6 weeks, he just has 1 game of 10 or more fantasy points. So just maybe a little bit to look forward to with Joe Flacco there, but it didn't really bear itself out in a big way. 8 targets is nice, but not too much else. Cooper Kupp bails his day out with a touchdown to reach 11 fantasy points and was the second leading scorer for a very sad team. On the bench, just absolutely nothing.
Yeah, you need some movement or injuries. That's what you need based on what your bench looks like. You need some trades or some injuries to some starters.
Yeah, I'm trying to stack this team and the bench a little bit with some guys that have a little bit more potential. I picked up Luther Burden, hoping that, if DJ Moore's injury turns out to be something serious and that Bears offense just takes off, that maybe Luther Burden could be a second half breakout. Travion Henderson continuing to hope that he gets the thing going. Bashal Tootin in the hopes that, an ETN injury would potentially launch Tootin into the stratosphere. So trying to keep some high upside guys on the bench, it's all I can do at this point.
Yeah.
But 86 points is certainly not going to get the job done. So your job is tough here, Adam, but I'm going to ask you if there's a beast anywhere here that you'd like to talk about.
Sure. So the beast for me is going to be Travis Kelce. I feel like a lot of people wrote him off before the season started, putting him around like tight end 7, 8. I think that might have been a little too far, especially with the resurgence of Patrick Mahomes as a effective passer again. He's now tight end number 5 on the season. I think that would shock some people. Still involved in this offense, 7, targets like that. Even with Rashid Rice coming back, I don't see his volume really changing that much. I think he does something different for that Chiefs offense. So he has Las Vegas, Washington, Buffalo next 3 weeks. I think those are all plus matchups for tight ends. So he is my beast for week 6.
Yeah, to your point, he does have 4 of 6 games as a top 12 tight end. So definitely, still able to get the job done there in Kansas City. We'll see what his role in the offense is after Rashee Rice returns next week. Okay, plenty of more options for you to pick a bust on my team this week, Adam.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Tony Pollard, just because, very plus matchup against the Raiders. Again, you're expecting way more than 10 carries, the season low of the season. Snap percentage also season low as well. That is with the return of Tajay Spears. Now new coaching staff in there as well. Do they just want to see what they have and kind of, they know what kind of Tony Pollard is. Is he going to lose more work now? That's all very concerning. Tony Pollard coming out of the draft, not a sexy pick, but he's always been kind of consistent, around within that top 20. being a running back 2 solidly. I'm concerned about it, especially, you know, this is the best kind of matchup you're going to get against the Raiders, and this low of usage. It's kind of like, well, let's see what Tajay Spears has, and this offense isn't good, so it's going to be negative pass script and or negative game script, and he doesn't catch the ball. So just a lot of concerns here with Tony Pollard. He is my bust for Week 6.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a general misconception a little bit in the fantasy community that running back situations and backfield workload splits change kind of slowly throughout the season. But really, in actuality, if you think about it, they actually change quite quickly. And I think you're seeing that here in Tennessee. Last week was Tajay Spears' first week back, so they wanted to work him in a little bit slowly. It was a 73-25 split for Pollard over Spears. This week it was 43 Pollard, 59 Spears. So all of a sudden, 1 week after returning from injury, Spears is the 60-40 split guy, and he's the 60% of that split. So unfortunate news for Pollard. Again, I think I have the same situation with a couple other backs here, but not a good place to be.
And I mean, going into last year, last year was his best year for rushing. It was his career high total in rushing yards last year, so definitely unexpected. He did have 260 carries last year as well, so kind of a fall off there, even with Tajay Spears being there last year. I know he was hurt for most of the season, but very concerning for Tony Pollard. And with a team construction where, like me, where I didn't have many wide receiver options, you don't have a lot of running back options.
Very true. Very true. Well, coming out of the draft, I think you and I both thought pretty highly of this team. I think you gave me quite a nice grade there coming out of the draft. Now, the injury to Malik Neighbors was obviously a big blow, but the sad realization that I've come to over the last couple weeks is that this team maybe was actually destined to just be a 500 team with Neighbors and is just a basement dweller without him, with a terrifyingly low amount of upside, especially in the starting lineup. But if there was one player on this team that you could envision really going off in the second half, who would it be?
I'm going to go a little different than what you said. I'm going to say T. Higgins. I think that they actually do have an effective passer now. I think Joe Flacco is way better than Jake Browning. Again, this is his first week. He had like a short week to kind of get prepared for this game. He's going to have a full week now to really learn the offense. I think that the offense was kind of segmented to, just very basic. This is what we're going to do. Now they can really flush it out more. Flacco can, he made Jerry Jeudy a thing last year with the Browns. So I'm a little higher on T. Higgins. Could he end up as a top 25 wide receiver? I believe so, as long as they keep Flacco starting. So I think that he is going to be better going forward than what he's been so far.
Certainly hope you're right on that side of things. All right, moving on to the next matchup then. It is going to be Josh getting the win here over Charlie. The Curtis Bay Chum Buckets with 107.12. Not, that's a little bit down tick compared to where Josh has been, but he still gets the victory over the 83.54 lowest scoring team of the week, Reisterstown Rockets. They're the Rockets, not the rocket ships, not the rocket whatever. They're just the Rockets, right? Am I right? It's the Rockets, right?
It's the Rockets.
All right, I'm just trying to say it over and over again so I get better at this. Okay. Anyway, 107.12 for the Curtis Bay Chum Buckets, 4-2 on the year, the number 5 team in the standings. Jalen Hurts rebounds a little bit here, does get 20 fantasy points. A little bit better than where he's been the last 2 weeks. Well, not really. He's 19, 19, 20. So maybe you're missing a little bit of that ceiling play for Hurts. He does get back into the end zone as a rusher in this game, which he did not do the last 2 weeks. Still pretty solid, but could certainly be better. Better like Josh Jacobs, who ended up with 2 touchdowns on the ground, 5 for 5 through the air for 57 yards, tacking on 93 yards on the ground. That ends him with a 29-point fantasy day. and his second straight week of a top 4 fantasy finish at the running back position. Otherwise here, lucky to get the win. I'm
Yeah.
seeing a lot of questionable tags on this team right now. Holy moly. Puka Nacua is certainly kind of the billboard name amongst those guys. 2 for 3 for 28 yards. Did leave the game against the Ravens here. I didn't see the injury. I didn't watch the injury. But it does appear that it was an ankle injury. So I
He
don't know.
did come back into the game, though. I will say that.
Okay.
He wasn't
All right.
out of the game, but obviously they didn't need to do anything. So
Okay, well, he's got other questionable tags here for Njoku, Jacoby Myers, Alvin Kamara, Josh Jacobs, Brock Purdy, Juwan Jennings. Oh my goodness. But not really a whole lot to remark on Adam here, so I think I'm just gonna hand it over to you to just pick a beast here.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be Josh Jacobs. I mean, now running back number 7, good offense. His second straight game of 29 points. Has total control of this backfield. Emmanuel Wilson is behind him. That's nothing. Looked really good in this one. 2 touchdowns, 5 yards per carry. Nothing else to really say. I mean, he's not the sexiest name to be drafting. It seems like he's been in the league forever, but he just produces. Arizona, Pittsburgh, Carolina coming up. He's startable as long as he's playing. Looks like he was limited at practice today, so maybe not concerns there. But Green Bay, good offense, good running back, good offensive-minded head coach. He is my beast for Week 6.
Nothing to add there, Adam, so go ahead and give me your bust.
So my bust is going to be Jacoby Myers. And this is a guy that I was really, really high on. During the draft, I actually kind of wanted to snag him before he was in the 8th round. But just looking at the last 4 games, it's been under 8 points, and you're kind of thinking, well, Brock Bowers is doing all this. Well, Brock Bowers has been out, so it's not that. It just seems like new coaching staff now, new offensive philosophy. They want to run the ball with Genty. They have Geno Smith, who's barely able to pass the ball, and you have Trey Tucker there who outscored him in this one as well. So very much concerns here. Still 90% snap percentage, so that's good, and there will be in positive game script, but not what you'd like to see, especially with how good he was last year and as wide receiver 23, now wide receiver number 39. He is my bust for Week 6.
Yeah, and aside from Jacksonville in week number 9, which is a nice matchup for wide receivers, it's at Kansas City, it's a bye, and it's at Denver. So certainly could be some more tough roads ahead. He has not reached 10 fantasy points since week 1. He has not been a top 36 receiver since week 1. Yeah. So continues to just struggle for the Raiders. Well, we've seen enough out of Josh at this point to feel great about him moving forward. Full send, no notes. However, I think this is a case to be made that literally every other player on this roster, aside from Josh Jacobs, when I said Josh, I meant Josh Jacobs, not Josh the manager, but Josh Jacobs the player. I think there's question marks everywhere else. Like literally, Adam, I looked at this team and every single other player, whether it's injury, whether it's workload, whether it's timeshare, there was a question mark for every other player. Do you agree with that assessment?
I do agree, and I'm going to go a step further. Is Josh's team fake? Like, is it a fake 4-2 team? Because it's kind of looking like that. Alvin Kamara has been nothing this year. Like, he's been not great. Running back number 26, and there's been questions about him maybe moving. Xavier Worthy's missed, games. How's his role look like with Rashid Rice coming back? Jacoby Myers, we went over him. Trey Tucker there. Brock Bowers coming back as well. Jake Ferguson. CeeDee Lamb's now coming back. Another pass catcher that's going to demand targets. David Njoku has been passed up by another tight end on that roster. The biggest question mark, I guess maybe the saving grace is going to be Will Marks, or Woody Marks, rather. is he the guy? He only had 7 carries against Baltimore, so I don't know. If he can get production out of him, this team looks a little bit better. But like you said, there are a ton of question marks here. And if Puka misses any time, you could see some losses come Josh's way.
Yeah, your point on Marks, the report last week out of ESPN's Dan Graziano, according to Sleeper, that the Texans still view rookie running back Woody Marks as predominantly a pass-catching back and one who, quote, had a bit of an injury history in college. So, you got to think, as long as Nick Chubb is healthy and viable as a somewhat competent running back, they may be trying to preserve their kind of new toy in Mark. So, yeah, I think a lot of questions remain, and certainly a lot of questionable tags remain for players when it comes to their injury designations. Okay, moving over to the losing side, the lowest score on the week, the Reisterstown Rockets 3-3. Charlie is on the outside looking in at the moment at number 8 in the standings. Okay, so it's Cam Skattebo. You're gonna talk about him. We're gonna talk about him. That's really all there is to talk about here. But from the negative perspective here, Matthew Stafford 9 points, Breece Hall 5 points, Devontae Smith 6 points, Deebo Samuel 3 points, Zay Flowers 5 points. I mean, this is incredible. If it wasn't for the 30 from Skattebo, could you imagine if Skattebo had a 5-point game here?
Or a 10, like a 10.
We're talking like record low potentially for this week. I stopped myself before I could even get to the tight end here. Juwan Johnson, 0.5 point. Yeah. Kenneth Walker, 4 points. My God, thank God for the Patriots and the kicker who had at least 8 and 9 respectively. This was, of course, with all of those Texans on bye that we talked about last week. This is with Lamar Jackson missing this one with an injury. So, I mean, let's talk about Cam Skattebo, Adam, here.
Yeah, Cam Skattebo, obviously the beast of the week. 30 points here. He runs like the Juggernaut from the X-Men series. He just puts his head down and hits the hole wherever it is and takes some people with him. Now running back number 10, 19 carries, 98 yards, 5.16 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns as well. 30 points against, a pretty good Eagles front seven. My concern is the way he runs the ball. What are the injury concerns with him? Because he takes a ton of punishment. Like a ton of punishment. I don't know if that can go on for the entire season. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. But with 30 points, season high, career high for Cam Skattebo, he is my beast for week 6.
All right, well, it's really insane that Skattebo more than tripled every other player on the roster in points in week 6. You talked about him as the beast. But since he's now a top 10 running back, despite playing behind Tyrone Tracy to begin the season, I think he is the perfect candidate for us to play the name game here, Adam. The classic fantasy-focused name game. And I thought about where to start this, but I think we have to start this kind of near the top of the draft. There are some round 1 guys here that I think it's a question. So obviously I think you're going to take Bijan, Gibbs, McCaffrey into the second round, Jacobs, Achane, and Taylor. Correct? All of those guys still over Skattebo.
I would take Derrick Henry over him as well. I don't think you mentioned him.
Oh, Derrick Henry as well. Okay, that also probably means Saquon Barkley.
Correct.
Okay. And, so this is very personal to you, but Ashton Genty.
It's close. I mean, it's very close. I'm still going to go Genty as of right now. I just think I think the Raiders are just still trying to figure out how to use him. And I think that will become more clear as the season goes on. I also think the injury, the probability of injury is lower than with Cam Scatterbo.
Okay. It's going to be hard because there's some guys in here that we're getting to that have had injuries, but Bucky Irving, assuming health for Bucky Irving.
I like Bucky Irving a little more, just based on last year, the amount he catches the ball, better offense. I think I'd take Bucky Irving over Cam Scatterbo.
All right, end of the second round. Chase Brown obviously is a
Chase
yes,
Brown definitely would take
unique.
Scatterbo over Chase Brown.
Yep. Okay, so Kyron Williams, beginning of the third.
Oh. You know what? I'm going to go Scatterbo. I think I'd rather Scatterbo.
Okay. And then a couple picks later, toward the middle of the third, James Cook.
Oof, that's a hard one too.
All right, but this is where it is.
That's where he is.
This is where
that's for sure where he is.
Right? Yeah. Because then afterwards you get to Marion Hampton, Breece Hall, Camaro, Walker, Henderson. So
yeah,
I think that's you're basically saying he's a middle of the third round pick.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Holy moly. So picked in the 10th round for Charlie. That's crazy. Well, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, if there's a guy that you feel like could sustain it, I mean, he seems to be kind of a powerhouse guy that is built like a tank. And
Payne Hillis.
We'll see.
Mike Allstott.
Yeah.
That's what it's kind of not the throwback, but watch Mike Allstott highlights on YouTube.
All right. Well, that is really all we have to talk about. There really wasn't much else to talk about.
We had the
In fact, did we? I totally skipped that, Adam.
I mean, there's so many options, as you were saying with your team. There's many options here, but I'm going to go Debo Samuel here. You know, really kind of disappointing. Plus matchup. You know, Scary Terry's still not in the lineup. Just 3.4 points on 5 targets, his second lowest of the season. 15 yards, also second lowest as well. Chris Moore had some nice catches in this one, former Raven. Also had a touchdown in this one as well, so that was kind of weird. Also, Luke McCaffrey, I think, had a score in this one. He did have a score in his only target. So not what you like to see, only 5 targets. He should be the number 1 there while Terry is out. Also gets hurt in this one, so he is my bust for week 6.
Okay, well, we played the name game, so let's move over to our last matchup of the evening. That's going to be Mike getting the victory over the Finksburg Kinks. It is the Columbia Clown College with 103.54, the lowest scoring winning team on the week, getting about a 13-point victory. It was 90 points for Tom's Finksburg Kinks. The Clown College advanced to 4-2, dropping their second in a row and dropping down to number 3 in the standings. Got a decent day out of Baker Mayfield here, 256 and 2 touchdowns, only throwing 23 passes in this one. Of course, that Buccaneers receiving core is more banged up than any other receiving core in the league. Very unfortunate, especially with the injury to Ibuka, who had been so good for the first part of the year. A down game here. Look, again, nice to win a game when Gibbs and Cook, the 2 stud running backs, 2 guys that you would still take over Scatterbo. 7 points for Gibbs and 8 points for Cook. So certainly welcome to get the victory there. And then, continued struggles for Travis Hunter. Really tough to start. Hasn't reached 8 points on the year, so I haven't looked closely at the options. I mean, I dropped Keon Coleman, and the numbers are pretty similar for those 2 guys. So, I don't know, for whatever that's worth. You do get Garrett Wilson here leaving this game, who is doubtful for week 7, unfortunately. That is a big loss potentially for Mike. 3 for 8 for 13 yards before leaving this contest. Or did he leave this contest? I assume he did, but he did have 8 targets. So did play 84% of the snaps. Season low, but so maybe got injured at the end of that game. Jamison Williams, a bright spot. Maybe you'll talk about him as your beast. He's a possibility here. 6 for 7, 66 yards and a touchdown. We've now seen it really just 2 of the 6 weeks for Jamison Williams, kind of that boom-bust dynamic making itself very apparent so far this season. And Dallas Goedert, a nice 9 for 11, 110, and a touchdown. He's quietly the number 3
Yeah.
tight end on the year. He's had 2 out of 3 weeks as the tight end one. So a really nice week for Goddard. As far as the bench goes, really not a lot. I mean, we guys on the bench, guys that are hurt. Bowers misses yet another game. Chris Godwin misses yet another game. Ricky Pearsall. So a little bit banged up for this squad. I think we'll talk about that in the big question, Adam. But who's your favorite beast for this team in Week 6?
I mean, it has to be Dallas Goddard. I feel like he's had a very quiet, like, tight end one season thus far. Seems to be like one of the most trusted pass catchers on this Eagles defense or Eagles offense that kind of is having like a passing identity crisis. It's like can't get the ball to AJ Brown. Devontae Smith has his up games and down games, but Dallas Goedert has been pretty consistent. 7.9, 9.8, 17, 9, and 21. So it seems like his floor is around 8, which is pretty good for a tight end. He really goes off in terms of the yardage here, but has scored a touchdown in his last 4 games. So when they get close in the red zone, they're looking for him. They also do a lot of like shovel pass stuff to him as well. Once they get close to the end zone as well, if they're not doing a tush push. He is my beast for Week 6, and I think he's a must start going forward. Anywhere you can, especially with Brock Bowers being out.
Yeah, 89% snaps, his second highest on the season. 5 games he's played. He did miss week 2, but in the 5 games he's played, he has scored 5 touchdowns. So very good touchdown to game ratio for the tight end there for Mike. Okay, how about a bust on this team?
It's going to be Javonte Williams. Very plus matchup against Carolina. Only 13 carries for 29 yards. Did have 8 targets for 5 catches, but only 5 yards on that. It's kind of like this is the Javonte Adams that was kind of in Denver. It's kind of middling. Gets all the work but doesn't do a lot with it. A little bit concerned. It's like if he has 1 or 2 more weeks like this, do they start looking at Jadon Blue a little bit, see what he can offer in terms of the running game? I don't think we're there yet. He's still running back number 5. But just a really disappointing game in a plus matchup. He is my bust for Week 6.
Yeah, maybe you're a little bit more concerned than I am here. 2.23 yards per carry, by far his lowest on the season. He's coming off of 4 straight games of 4.25 or more yards per carry, including a 5.39, a 7.6, and an 8.44. So he has been extremely efficient, which totally you're right. I mean, what you saw this week is more classic of what he was doing in Denver in terms of just a sluggish guy who seems to maybe not be what he was before suffering some injuries. But I think I'm still pretty high on him. He does have some decent matchups coming up, with the exception of Denver in Week 8. So I think better days ahead for Javonte Williams. That is very true. That'll be an interesting one to watch, I think. Just as an NFL game, 2 very different teams.
Yeah,
like one that is
very differently built teams. Yeah,
absolutely. That'll be a fun one. Is that a primetime game, I wonder? I hope it is. I'd like to watch that one. All right, well, so matchup against the Finksburg Kinks, what Mike had this week seemed to be just what the doctor ordered for Mike's Columbia Clown College after 2 straight losses. The same can't be said for all of his starting receivers, his running backs, and his tight ends, whose teams all lost, curiously enough, in Week 6, and whose offenses were all held below 20 points. The big problem now, however, is that the injuries are really stacking up for Mike. You've got this nagging knee injury for Brock Bowers, drafted as the top tight end off the board. A recent leg injury to Chris Godwin, who himself was coming off of an injury last year, and a new issue that has cropped up, a knee issue for Garrett Wilson, that all may keep some very good players on the shelf for what's looking like multiple weeks.
Yeah.
So as the onslaught of the bye weeks are going to continue here, Mike's team, who I think was the early season favorite after the first couple weeks, has clearly lost some of its mojo. On a scale of 1 to 10, Adam, how concerned are you about the Columbia Clown College?
I'm going to put the level at a 6. Travis Hunter not doing anything, especially where you drafted him. You're expecting a little more out of him. Also, someone we didn't really talk about, James Cook. Kind of weird. It's like it seems like he's so like touchdown dependent. Now I say that and I'm looking at it. He had 132, 108, and 117, but last 2 games, 49 yards, 87 yards. The concerning part is no involvement in the passing game. Only one target in his last 2 games. That's really concerning. Going to week bye and going to bye in week 7, so you won't even have him this week. A little bit concerned about him. But again, it all goes back to the wide receivers. I mean, Chris Godwin, who knows what's going on with him. Ricky Pearsall doesn't look like he's going to play this week either. You need something out of Jameson Williams. You need this kind of week that he had this week with 15 points. He does have a plus matchup against Tampa Bay. It seems like that's going to be a very high-scoring game. Maybe he can get in the end zone, get some targets there. But he's kind of hard to trust, so I would put it at a 6. There's still a lot of talent on this team. Still a lot of individual players that can blow up, but you have a lot of holes now at the wide receiver position.
For sure, and the interesting thing looking ahead, anticipating that Mike is going to be in the playoff picture at least toward the end of the year. Weeks 12 and 13 at Houston, at Pittsburgh. Those are 2 very good defenses against the run. And then assuming he makes the playoffs and advances, Week 15 and Week 16 at New England and at Cleveland. So that's 4 out of 5 straight games, away games against very good run defenses. Yeah. So a tough end of the season and playoff picture for one of the better running backs in the game. Well, let's move over then, Adam, to our last team here. It's Tom and the Finksburg Kinks dropping to 1-5. I think maybe for the 3rd straight week. The number 12 team. Just 90 points scored in week number 6. He does get Jaden Daniels at 21, but struggling at the running back position. Saquon Barkley, 12 for 58, no touchdowns. Chase Brown, just 9 carries for 42 yards. Did get a 2-point conversion, but just 7 fantasy points for both of those.
That's actually a pretty good line for him compared to the season.
I guess so.
It's his most yards per carry for the season.
So those are Tom's 1st and 2nd round draft picks. Compare that to Bijan Robinson and Drake London for Dustin.
That's why one is 5-1 and one is 1-5.
That's right. Cortland Sutton. I don't know if you're going to highlight him, Adam, but maybe it was the Jets defense. Is that Sauce Gardner there with the Jets, the cornerback? So maybe that's the reason for the struggle for Sutton. Does get, the best game of the season for Golden, 11 fantasy points. Krosky Merritt, though, struggled here, 5 fantasy points following up the 26-point game from week number 5. So just a lot of inconsistency across the board. Gets just a single point from the Eagles against the Giants. Gets some nice production on the bench. It was Kayshon Boutte with 23. Hollywood Brown scoring 2 touchdowns for 18 fantasy points. And Tajay Spears, who we talked about earlier, who, may be trending up for the Titans. So from the starters here, Adam, who is the beast for week number 6?
So my beast is going to be McMillan. 2 touchdowns, his first 2 touchdowns of the year. Only had 5 targets in this one, but he seems to be a very trusted option for Bryce Young. Big target, huge catch radius. This is just things to come. I feel like, looking at his prior weeks, 8 targets, 8 targets, 8 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets. I don't know if they were trying to do something where Dallas was trying to take him away. But I think as he gets more comfortable being a rookie in his rookie season, I think that he's just good, and I think that he was a pretty good draft pick in the round 5. Does have the Jets, Buffalo, and Green Bay. 2 of those 3 have good offenses, so they're going to be in plus passing down scripts. He is my beast for week 6. Better things to come, and I think the touchdowns are going to come as well.
Okay, some options certainly to choose from for your bust this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go Saquon here. I mean, really plus matchup. Only scores 7 points, 81% snap count, had 12 rushes. Watching this game on Thursday night, he started off the game with like 25 to 30 rushing yards on the first two plays, and they just kind of went away from him. It was kind of odd. Um, Also, something to be concerned about, little involvement in the passing game as well. Only 3 targets in this one for 9 yards. It's just now running back number 13, where you picked him, as the third overall pick, being running back 13 is not the return investment that you want. We're definitely seeing regression from last year. It only has 3 total touchdowns on the season, or 4 total if you're counting receiving. Just really disappointing. And he has the Vikings, then he has the Giants again, then his bye week. So Minnesota, very tough defense, and this Eagles offense does not have an identity. He is my bust for week 6.
Yeah, interesting tidbit. Now we have the Eagles and the Bills both lost for the first time. They were the two remaining undefeated teams going into week 5 last week. Both of them have now lost 2 in a row,
Yeah.
the Bills and the Eagles. So certainly struggling there. So interesting note. It's the first time since 2014 that we have not had an undefeated team entering week number 6.
Interesting.
That was interesting tidbit there. Okay, well, with 90 points, it was certainly not a good week for Tom's Finksburg Kings. As is the case with the Ravens, a 1-5 record makes a playoff run pretty improbable at this point, and you'd have to say that success for Tom at this point may mean that some of the young players we've been talking about since draft day display some just proof of concept in what Tom was trying to do when assembling this team. That might be his bar of success.
Yeah.
So even if those breakouts are a little bit too little, too late. This week, you mentioned Tet McMillan, the rookie wide receiver, but it was also Matthew Golden and Kayshon Boutte, each posting their season high in fantasy points. So you talked already about McMillan, but looking at the other two guys, Boutte with the Patriots, Golden with the Packers, make the case for each of those two guys sustaining this momentum and giving Tom some solace in a thus far disappointing season.
Well, I would say that, oddly enough, I'm higher on Golden than I am on Boutte, to be completely honest. I think he was a first-round draft pick for the Packers. Better offense, he's a speedster. I feel like they're still trying to figure out how to get the ball in his hands. I think that he's going to be better. Boutte is kind of on, a worse offense. Has Stephon Diggs there, has Hunter Henry there. Now the Packers do have Dobbs and Kraft there as well. But I'm just a little bit higher just based on the quarterback play in terms of throwing the ball to Jordan Love than Drake May. But again, now wide receiver number 28, Boutte, it's just hard to start him. Like, where do you start him? It's, you're going to have these 2.3 point games, and you're going to have these maybe like 17-point games. It's kind of hard to pick and choose where you're going to start him.
Yeah, I'm going to actually make the opposite case. I'm going to make the case that I actually prefer Boutte the rest of the way. Reason being, he has been basically the leading snap getter for the Patriots wide receivers thus far this entire season. 67% in week 6. He did lead the team and has been leading the team in that category for the entire year. The Packers, we've talked about it, beside Tucker, the fact that they've got Tucker Kraft there, he's doing this and he's having some success here without the Christian Watson, right, who's been out but expects to come back, and without Jaden Reed, who also should be back here in the next, I think, couple weeks. So I think there's actually more competition for targets, perhaps, in that Packers offense than there is with the Patriots.
I just think Golden's better than all of them.
That's certainly true. I think that could certainly be true.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out over the course of the season, and could be, kind of an interesting. We'll see if Tom has that decision to make in the coming weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So that takes us through our matchups, Adam. So, as always, while you pull up the matchups for next week, I'm going to just give a quick overview of the bye week teams. Of course, the Ravens on bye next week, as well as the Buffalo Bills. Charlie had, the Texans on bye last week. He also has Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson on bye in week number 7. So, at the very least, some of the skill players for Charlie will have their buys out of the way. So maybe he got that kind of low point score this week out of his system and will be mostly full strength for the rest of the season. Alex is going to be without the services of Derrick Henry and Josh Allen, so could be a tough one for Alex. Sarah is going to be missing Mark Andrews for tight end. Mike will be without James Cook, Dustin without Khalil Shakir, and Jake without Dalton Kincaid. So with that, Adam, take us through the Week 7 matchups in the Beltway Wars Invitational.
So Week 7, we got the Union Bridge Badgers at 3-3 against the Prent Street Po' Boys at 2-4. The Owings Mills.
You're welcome for that win, by the way.
Stop it! You're gonna win. Owings Mills Ozempic at 2-4 against the Penn Prairie Wolves at 1-5. Reisterstown Rockets at 3-3 versus the Westminster Wrecking Crew at 3-3. Maybe a pivotal game there. Finksburg Kings at 1-5 against the Berlin Banshees 5-1. Maybe Dustin's overlooking them. Who knows? Columbia Clown College at 4-2 against the Timonium Neon Tubes at 4-2 as well.
Tubes.
I said Tubes.
No, I know. I'm saying it to again. I'm verbalizing it for myself.
The Pasadena Pulverizers at 4-2 against the Curtis Bay Chum Buckets 4-2. So a battle of the Hugheses in the household. I wonder if they'll be talking to each other this week. But that is our Week 7 matchups. Thank you for listening to the podcast this week, and we will see you regular time next week. I'm hoping, yes.
I think so.
All right. So until then, see you next time.
Thank you for listening and your support. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify.